A rich man, owner of the city's famous rodeo, plans to use his most ferocious horse to get rid of his wheelchair-bound daughter. But the cruel plan turns into a scene no one could have predicted, because what the horse did left everyone speechless. Before we continue, if you, like us, love animals, subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss any heartwarming stories. Thank you. Let's get back to our story. The rising sun painted the Rodeo Creek sky with hues of orange and pink. As little, Sophia watched from the window of her second-floor bedroom in the Harrison mansion. Her large brown eyes, inherited from her mother, shone with the same intensity as the sun that was beginning to wake. From the perspective of her 6 years, seated in her custom wheelchair, the girl contemplated the horses grazing peacefully in the property's verdant fields. "Honey, are you awake?" Laura's soft voice filled the room, bringing with it the comforting aroma of hot chocolate and freshly baked cookies. Sophia skillfully turned her chair, a smile lighting up her delicate face. "Mommy, Thunder looks different." "Today!" the girl exclaimed, pointing to a majestic black horse that stood out among the others. Laura approached the window, her brown hair tied back in a messy bun, a reflection of her haste to prepare breakfast before her husband woke up. "How so, my love?" Laura asked, affectionately tucking a strand of her daughter's hair. "He seems sad, like he knows something we don't," Sophia replied, her voice carrying a wisdom that often surprised the adults around her. Laura felt a chill run down her spine. Thunder was known as the most temperamental horse on the rodeo circuit, a force of nature few dared to tame. But Sophia had always had a special connection with him, even from a distance. The moment of peace was interrupted by the sound of heavy footsteps in the hallway. Richard Harrison, a respected and feared businessman in the region, entered the room without knocking, his impeccable suit contrasting with the simplicity of Sophia's floral pajamas. "Not ready for breakfast yet?" His sharp voice made the girl's smile falter. "The rodeo starts in 3 weeks, and I have an important meeting with the sponsors. I can't be late because of these unnecessary delays." Laura instinctively placed herself between her husband and daughter. "Sophia just woke up, Richard. We were just wasting time as usual," he interrupted, his cold eyes fixed on the wheelchair. "This house needs order, discipline, not childish fantasies." Sophia lowered her gaze to her small hands folded in her lap. Her fingers lightly squeezed the hem of her pajamas, a gesture her mother knew well. It was how the girl held back tears. "I'll get ready real quick, Daddy," Sophia promised, her voice just a whisper. Richard adjusted his expensive tie, a gift from one of the many businessmen who courted his empire. "See that you do. And Laura, I need to speak with you in the office. Now." After he left, Laura knelt beside Sophia's chair, holding her small hands in hers. "My love, don't let him." "It's okay, Mommy," Sophia smiled, though her eyes were welling up. "I know Daddy is busy with the rodeo. He just wants everything to be perfect." Laura felt her heart ache. How could her little one be so understanding of someone who offered her only coldness? She kissed her daughter's forehead and promised to return soon to help her get dressed. In the hallway, before heading to the office, Laura paused for a moment, her hands trembling slightly. Sophia's words about Thunder echoed in her mind. Lately, Richard had been different, more tense than usual. His secret meetings with Jed, a ranch hand with a shady reputation, increased her unease. Through the hallway window, she saw Thunder rearing agitatedly, as if sharing her apprehension. The black horse, known for his wild nature, seemed more alert than usual, his eyes fixed on the mansion. Laura took a deep breath and straightened her shoulders. Years of marriage to Richard had taught her to read the signs of a coming storm, and now, more than ever, she needed to be prepared. Not for herself, but for Sophia, her little warrior who faced the world with a smile, even when it turned its back on her. As she walked towards the office, one thought consoled her. In 3 weeks, the biggest rodeo of the year would transform Rodeo Creek. What Laura didn't know was that this transformation would be far deeper and more painful than anyone could imagine. The office door closed with a soft click, but to Laura, it sounded like the snapping shut of a trap. Richard was sitting behind his imposing mahogany desk, the first rays of sun crossing the window and casting long shadows on his stern face. "Sit down," he ordered, indicating the chair in front of him. Laura obeyed, maintaining the upright posture she had learned to hold during years of silent confrontations. "The Montgomerys confirmed they'll be at the rodeo," Richard began, his fingers drumming on a leather folder. "They're bringing investors from New York. Important people, Laura. People who can't see imperfections." "Our daughter is not an imperfection," Laura replied, her voice low but firm. Richard leaned forward, his dark eyes hardening. "It's not about what we think, but the image we need to maintain. The Montgomerys have 3 sons, all champion riders. And us? What do we have to show?" Outside, Thunder's distant whinny could be heard. Laura thought of Sophia, probably still watching the horses from her window. "We have an extraordinary daughter," she said. "Sophia has a special gift with animals, even Thunder." "Don't give me that nonsense." Richard slammed his hand on the table, making Laura jump. "A gift with animals? What does that mean in the business world? How will that help expand our holdings?" At that moment, light footsteps in the hallway caught their attention. Through the crack under the door, they saw the shadow of Sophia's wheelchair passing by. Richard lowered his voice to a threatening whisper. "During the rodeo, I want her out of the spotlight, understand? No trips around the ranch, no getting close to the horses, and especially," he emphasized each word, "no special connections with Thunder." Laura felt her blood run cold. There was something in Richard's tone, a veiled threat that went beyond his usual displays of contempt. "What are you planning?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Richard smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Just ensuring our reputation remains intact. Now go. Sophia must need help getting dressed." Laura stood up, her legs trembling slightly. As she reached the door, Richard's voice stopped her. "Oh, and Laura, Jed starts today as our new groom. He'll be taking care of Thunder personally." In the hallway, Laura found Pedro, the boy who often helped clean the ranch in exchange for a few bucks. His large, attentive eyes followed Sophia, who was in the garden with her private tutor. "Mrs. Harrison," he whispered, gently tugging her skirt. "You need to know something. Last night I saw your husband talking to Jed near the stable." Laura knelt to the boy's level. "What were they saying, Pedro?" "I couldn't hear everything, but Jed looked scared. And later, he went to Thunder's stall and stayed there a long time, messing with the ropes and gear." A shiver ran down Laura's spine. Jed had a dark reputation on the rodeo circuit. Stories of mysterious accidents followed him like shadows. "Pedro, I need you to keep an eye on everything. Anything strange you notice, tell me immediately." The boy nodded, his eyes revealing a maturity beyond his 12 years. "Sophia's my friend, Mrs. Harrison. She always gives me food when I'm hungry. I won't let anything bad happen to her." Laura watched Sophia in the garden, laughing as her tutor showed her a book. Her daughter had the gift of touching the most unlikely hearts, from wild horses to poor kids doing odd jobs. Everyone, except her own father. In the stable, Thunder neighed again, an agitated sound that echoed across the property. Laura couldn't help but notice that the horse seemed more restless since Jed's arrival. The next 3 weeks promised changes. Laura just prayed they were changes she could endure. Meanwhile, she needed to keep her eyes open and Sophia protected. Something told her the approaching storm would be more devastating than any they had faced before. Sophia waited patiently until her private tutor put away her books and said goodbye. As soon as she was alone in the garden, her eyes searched for Pedro, who was sweeping dry leaves near the back gate. With a knowing smile, the boy approached her wheelchair. "All set, Sophia," he whispered, glancing cautiously towards the mansion. "Dad's in town and Mom's busy with the rodeo preparations," Sophia replied, her eyes shining with anticipation. "Can we go see Thunder?" Pedro took his position behind the wheelchair, skillfully guiding her along the stone paths leading to the stables. The familiar scent of fresh hay and leather mixed with the morning breeze, making Sophia close her eyes for a moment, absorbing every sensation. "Jed went out for lunch," Pedro informed her, his voice betraying a hint of worry. "But we have to be quick. He always comes back earlier than he says." As they approached Thunder's stall, the imposing black horse lifted his head, his ears twitching towards Sophia. A soft whinny, almost a greeting, echoed through the stable. "Hi, my friend." Sophia reached her hand through the bars of the stall. Thunder approached gently, his velvety muzzle touching the girl's small fingers. "You're different today. What happened?" Pedro watched, amazed, as the most feared horse on the circuit transformed into a gentle giant under Sophia's touch. "I still can't believe how calm he gets around you," he commented, approaching cautiously. "It's because we're alike," Sophia explained, stroking the animal's muscular neck. "People are sometimes afraid of what they don't understand. They think just because someone is different, they must be dangerous or troublesome." The wisdom in the girl's words made Pedro swallow hard. He knew well what it was like to be judged by appearance, by the tears in his clothes, by the dirt on his bare feet. Sophia continued, "But Thunder isn't mean. He just gets scared when they try to force him to do things, like me when Dad wants me to pretend to be different than I am." A sudden noise made them both jump. Pedro quickly hid behind a bale of hay, while Sophia remained where she was, her hand still in contact with Thunder. Jed appeared at the stable entrance, his lined face hardening when he saw the girl. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his harsh voice echoing between the stalls. "Just came to visit my friend," Sophia replied, maintaining her composure despite the fear beginning to grow in her chest. The groom approached, smelling of cigarettes and sweat. "Your father made it very clear you're not to go near the horses, especially this one." He slammed his hand hard on the stall bars, making Thunder back away agitatedly. "Please don't scare him," Sophia pleaded, her small hands gripping the arms of her wheelchair. Jed leaned in, his face close to Sophia's. "Listen here, girl. This horse isn't your little friend. He's a dangerous animal, and accidents happen all the time at rodeos. It would be a shame if something unexpected happened." The words, loaded with a veiled threat, made Sophia tremble. Thunder, sensing her distress, reared and neighed furiously, his hooves striking the stall bars with force. "I'm taking you back to the house," Jed said, grabbing the wheelchair handles with more force than necessary. "And if I catch you here again—" "No need," a firm voice interrupted. Laura stood at the stable entrance, her eyes flashing with anger. "I'll take my daughter." Jed stepped back, forcing a servile smile. "Just looking out for her safety, Mrs. Harrison. The boss would be furious if he knew she was wandering around here alone." "I'm sure he would," Laura replied coldly, taking control of the wheelchair. Before leaving, she cast a significant look towards where she knew Pedro was hiding. On the way back to the mansion, Sophia remained silent, her hands still trembling. Slightly, Laura could feel the fear emanating from her daughter, mixed with the determination she knew well. "Mommy," Sophia finally spoke, her voice just a whisper. "There's something wrong with Thunder. The ropes on his saddle, they're different, and Jed, he—" "Shh," Laura interrupted gently, leaning down to kiss the top of her daughter's head. "I know, my love. I know." The sun had already set when Richard finally returned to the mansion. His office, lit only by the desk lamp, cast restless shadows on the walls. Jed awaited him, shifting uncomfortably in the leather chair. "She was there today," Jed said without waiting for Richard to sit. "Your daughter. In the stable with the horse." Richard slowly unbuttoned his jacket, his controlled movements masking his growing irritation. "And the animal. He's different with her. Never seen anything like it. Thunder's known for being untamable, but near her..." Jed hesitated, searching for the right words. "It's like he's a different horse." "That doesn't matter." Richard cut him off, pouring himself a whiskey. "What matters is if you did what I told you." "Yes, boss. The saddle ropes have been adjusted. At the right time, it'll look like a common accident. These things happen all the time at rodeos." Richard swirled the amber liquid in his glass, watching the shadows dance through the crystal. "And the chair, also prepped, just to push at the right moment when Thunder is most agitated. With the chaos of the rodeo, nobody will notice a thing." Outside the office, Pedro held his breath. He had followed Jed to the mansion, moving like a shadow among the bushes. Now, crouched beneath the window, every word he heard made his heart beat faster. "Laura can't suspect anything," Richard continued. "She's been very protective lately. And that kid who's always hanging around here, Pedro, already took care of that. Told him if he shows up around here again, he'll regret it." Richard nodded, satisfied. "Good. Very good. The Montgomerys arrive in 2 weeks for the rodeo. I need everything to be perfect, without distractions." Pedro retreated silently, his hands trembling. He needed to find Mrs. Harrison, tell her everything. But before he could move, a gentle hand touched his shoulder. "I heard everything too," whispered Sophia, her wheelchair strategically positioned in the garden shadows. Pedro almost screamed in surprise. "Sophia, what are you doing out here this late?" "I saw Jed sneaking in," she replied, her voice strangely calm for a child who had just heard her own father planning. Pedro couldn't even complete the thought. "We need to tell your mom," he insisted. Sophia shook her head. "Not yet. Dad will deny everything, and Jed will back up the lie. We need proof." Pedro looked at the girl with admiration. How could someone so small be so brave? But how? "You can help me," Sophia smiled, a sad smile that didn't suit her childlike face. "We need to photograph the ropes on Thunder's saddle, and my chair too. Mom has an old phone in her room that still takes pictures." Inside the office, the conversation continued. "And if something goes wrong?" asked Jed, his voice betraying nervousness. "Nothing will go wrong," Richard assured him, his voice cold as ice. "And if it does, well, you know what happens to ranch hands who can't do their jobs right, don't you?" In the garden, Sophia held Pedro's hand. "Will you help me?" The boy squeezed her small hand in his. "Always, Sophia, always." That night, while the mansion slept, 2 young souls plotted their own conspiracy. One to save lives, the other to destroy them. And in the stable, Thunder stirred restlessly, as if sensing the approaching danger. Laura, in her room, couldn't sleep. Sophia's words about the different ropes echoed in her mind. Her maternal instinct screamed that something terrible was about to happen. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she hadn't used in a long time. "Hello, Sheriff Martinez. This is Laura Harrison. We need to talk. It's about my daughter and about Richard." The wind blew harder, making the mansion windows rattle. In 2 weeks, the biggest rodeo of the year would turn Rodeo Creek into a scene of festivity and competition. But for some, it would be the stage for a silent battle between good and evil, between innocence and cruelty, between love and power. And at the center of it all, a little girl in her wheelchair, with courage bigger than her size and a heart, pure enough to tame even the wildest of horses. The corner cafe on Main Street was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone by name, but on that rainy morning, Laura chose a booth in the back, away from curious glances. "Sheriff Martinez," arrived promptly at 9, his hat dripping water onto the brim as he sat down. "Long time no see, Laura," he said, removing his hat to reveal graying hair at the temples. "Last time we saw each other was at Richard's wedding. You were radiant that day." Laura wrapped her hands around the coffee mug, seeking comfort in its warmth. "A lot has changed since then, Antonio." "I figured," he replied, his experienced eyes noticing the deep, dark circles under her eyes. "Your call last night worried me. What's going on?" Laura glanced around once more before speaking. "It's about Sophia and Richard. Something is wrong, very wrong. Jed, the new groom, has been acting suspiciously, and Richard—" Her voice faltered. "Go on," the sheriff encouraged, leaning forward. "Richard has always been difficult with Sophia ever since she was born, since we found out about the wheelchair. But now—" Laura took a deep breath. "I think he's planning something terrible." While Laura reported her suspicions back at the mansion, Sophia and Pedro executed their own plan. With Laura's old phone hidden in the pocket of his torn jeans, Pedro crept through the stable, photographing every suspicious detail he found. "The ropes," whispered Sophia, pointing to a specific spot on Thunder's saddle. "See how they're different from the others." Pedro photographed the details, his hands trembling slightly. "Sophia, it looks like it was cut on purpose." The black horse stirred in his stall, as if understanding the gravity of the situation. Sophia reached out her hand, touching his muzzle through the bars. "Easy, friend. We won't let anything bad happen." At the cafe, Sheriff Martinez listened intently, years of police experience alerting him to the seriousness of the situation. "I need concrete proof, Laura," he said finally. "Suspicions aren't enough to move against someone like Richard Harrison." "I know," she replied, her voice gaining firmness. "That's why I arranged this meeting. I need your help getting that proof." Martinez took a small recorder from his pocket. "This is special equipment, small enough not to be noticed, powerful enough to pick up conversations even from a distance." Laura took the device with trembling hands. "And if Richard finds out? Then we'll need to act fast," the sheriff replied, his eyes revealing genuine concern. "Laura, are you sure you want to go through with this? Richard is a powerful man with connections all over the state. I'm more afraid of what he might do to Sophia than what he might do to me," she answered, tucking the recorder into her purse. Back at the stable, Pedro finished photographing the evidence when he heard footsteps approaching. Quickly, he hid behind a bale of hay, while Sophia turned her chair towards the entrance. Jed appeared, carrying riding gear. Seeing Sophia, his face twisted into a scowl. "Here again, girl? Your father isn't going to like this one bit." "Just came to say goodbye to Thunder," Sophia replied, her calm voice masking her fear. "Since I can't see him during the rodeo." Something in Jed's eyes flickered. Was it guilt? Best stay away. Rodeos are dangerous places for kids, especially some kids. When Jed walked away, Pedro emerged from his hiding place, his face pale. "I got pictures of everything," he whispered. "But there's something else. I saw Jed hide something under the hay near your chair. I think it was a tool." Sophia felt a chill run down her spine. "Pedro, we need to tell Mom. Now." At the cafe, Laura and Sheriff Martinez were finishing their meeting. "I'll assign some trusted deputies to keep an eye out during the rodeo," he promised. "But Laura, be careful. If Richard suspects anything—" "Don't worry about me," she interrupted, standing up. "Just promise you'll protect my daughter." Martinez put on his hat, now dry. "You have my word. And Laura, you're not alone in this." As she walked back home through the light rain, Laura felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. She finally had allies in her silent fight. Little did she know that at that exact moment, 2 other little warriors were already fighting alongside her. The week leading up to the rodeo, turned Rodeo Creek into a bustling hive of activity. Trucks arrived loaded with equipment, stalls were set up, and the smell of popcorn already began to perfume the air. For most residents, it was a time of celebration. For Laura, every passing hour was an added weight on her heart. "Mommy," Sophia called, entering her mother's room as she hid Sheriff Martinez's recorder in a secret drawer. "I need to show you something." Laura turned to find not only Sophia, but also Pedro, who held the old phone with trembling hands. "What have you two been up to?" "Saving lives," Sophia answered, with that seriousness that sometimes scared Laura. Pedro showed her. The photos on the phone made Laura sit down heavily on the bed. There was the evidence she needed. The ropes on Thunder's saddle clearly tampered with, suspicious marks on Sophia's wheelchair, and even the tool Jed had hidden. You did this yourselves?" Laura asked, her voice choked with pride and fear. "It was Sophia's idea," Pedro explained, sitting beside her. "She said we needed proof, that nobody would believe just our word." Laura pulled them both into a tight hug. "My little detectives, but it was so dangerous. If Jed had caught you—" "But he didn't," Sophia interrupted, her eyes shining with determination. "And now we have proof that Dad and Jed are planning something bad." A distant whinny made the Isa 3 look out the window. Thunder was especially agitated that morning, rearing and kicking against his stall fence. "He knows," Sophia said, her voice low. "Thunder feels something is going to happen." Laura stood up, a decision made in her heart. "Pedro, I need you to take these photos to Sheriff Martinez, now." "But Mrs. Harrison, what if your husband sees me?" "He's in town meeting the Montgomerys," she replied, quickly transferring the photos to a flash drive. "This is our chance." As Pedro left on his mission, Laura noticed Sophia was unusually quiet, watching Thunder through the window. "What is it, my love?" "Mommy, what if even with all this proof, we can't stop Dad?" Sophia's voice trembled slightly. "What if he hurts? Thunder or you?" Laura knelt beside the wheelchair, taking the small hands in hers. "Listen carefully, Sophia. Your father may have money, he may have power, but we have something much stronger." "What?" "Love, truth, and good people on our side. Sheriff Martinez, Pedro, even Thunder. They're all protecting us." In the stable, Jed prepared the equipment for the rodeo when Richard arrived, accompanied by a tall, imposing man, the Montgomery patriarch. "And this is our champion," Richard introduced, stopping in front of Thunder's stall. "The wildest horse on the circuit." Mr. Montgomery observed the animal with experienced eyes. "Impressive, but I heard your daughter can handle him. How is that possible?" Richard visibly stiffened. "Mere tales from superstitious ranch hands. Thunder doesn't let anyone tame him." "That's not what I was told," Montgomery insisted. "In fact, I'd very much like to see this girl. Where is she?" "Sophia is unwell," Richard cut in, his face red with contained anger. "Perhaps another time." After Montgomery walked away, Richard grabbed Jed's arm forcefully. "Speed up the preparations. We can't wait until the rodeo. It needs to happen before these rumors spread further." "But boss, everything isn't ready yet." "I don't care. Tomorrow, during practice. Understand?" Jed nodded, though his hands trembled as he adjusted the saddle ropes. Deep down, a voice screamed that this was wrong. But his fear of Richard was greater than his conscience. What neither of them knew was that Pedro, hidden behind the hay bales, had recorded the entire conversation on Laura's old phone. As soon as they left, the boy ran even faster towards the sheriff's office. The race against time had begun. Dawn brought a sky heavy with dark clouds, as if nature itself sensed the approaching danger. Laura woke with a start to the sound of distant thunder, her heart pounding as she realized Pedro hadn't returned from the sheriff's office yet. "Mommy?" Sophia's voice came from the hallway. "Can I come in?" Laura opened the door to find her daughter already dressed, a determined gleam in her brown eyes. "It's Thunder's practice today," the girl said, her small hands gripping the arms of her chair. "I need to be there." "No, Sophia." Laura felt her blood run cold. "It's too dangerous. Your father will do something terrible if we're not there," Sophia completed, with a maturity that broke Laura's heart. "Thunder needs me, Mommy, and I need him." Before Laura could respond, they heard hurried footsteps coming up the back stairs. It was Pedro, breathless and soaked by the rain that was starting to fall. "Mrs. Harrison," he gasped. "The sheriff, he's not in town. He was called to the state capital last night, an emergency. He won't be back until tomorrow." Laura felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Without Martinez, without official protection. "The proof," she whispered. "Did you manage to deliver the proof?" Pedro shook his head, disappointed. "The deputy. Sheriff wouldn't see me, said he didn't have time for stories from some poor kid." A flash of lightning lit up the room, followed by the deafening sound of thunder. In the stable, they heard Thunder's agitated whinny. "It's happening now," Sophia said, turning her chair towards the door. "They're not going to wait for the official practice. Jed is prepping Thunder. I can feel it." As if confirming her words, they heard the engine of Richard's car starting in the garage. Laura ran to the window just in time to see her husband driving off towards the stables. "Pedro!" Laura grabbed the boy's arm. "Run to the Montgomery's place. Mr. Montgomery needs to see this with his own eyes. He's the only one Richard still respects or fears." As Pedro disappeared into the rain, Laura grabbed a coat and wrapped Sophia in it. "Let's go, my love. But you have to promise me, stay away from the arena. Let me handle your father." In the stable, the scene they found confirmed their worst fears. Richard supervised as Jed adjusted the gear on Thunder, who was thrashing violently. "What are you doing here?" Richard roared upon seeing them. "Laura, take Sophia home now!" "No!" Sophia's voice rang out clear and strong, surprising everyone. "I know what you're planning, Daddy. I saw the cut ropes. I saw Jed's tool." For a moment, Richard seemed genuinely shocked. Then his face contorted into a mask of fury. "So, you've been snooping, you little—" "Don't you dare!" Laura interrupted, placing herself between him and her daughter. "It's over, Richard. We have proof. Sheriff Martinez already knows everything." "Martinez?" Richard laughed, a cold, humorless sound. "He's in the capital, darling, and when he gets back it'll be too late. Jed, take Thunder to the arena. It's time we show everyone this horse is nothing but a wild, dangerous animal." "No!" Sophia cried, and before anyone could stop her, she guided her chair into Thunder's stall. The black horse, who seconds before had been thrashing furiously, instantly calmed at the girl's presence. Sophia reached out her hand, touching his muzzle. "He's not wild," she said, tears streaming down her face. "He's just scared. Like I was before I understood that being different isn't being wrong." The rain intensified outside, turning into a downpour. Richard took a step forward, his eyes blazing with hatred. "Get out of there now, Sophia, or I swear You'll do what, Richard?" A deep voice sounded from the stable entrance. Mr. Montgomery stood there, soaked by the rain, with Pedro beside him. "Harm your own daughter, like you planned to do with the horse?" Richard's face lost all color. Behind him, Jed dropped Thunder's reins, his hands trembling. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of the rain and Thunder's soft whinnies, as he remained extraordinarily calm under Sophia's touch. Mr. Montgomery strode through the stable, his heavy footsteps echoing on the wooden planks. "So the rumors were true," he said, observing the scene with experienced eyes. "The girl really does have a gift with horses. And you, Richard, planned to destroy all this out of pride." Richard adjusted his wet tie, trying to regain his composure. "Montgomery, it's not what it looks like. I was just—" "Spare me your lies," thundered the patriarch. "This boy," he pointed to Pedro, "showed me the photos, the cut ropes, the hidden tools. And now I see with my own eyes. Your daughter, whom you despise so much, has more courage and dignity in her heart than you ever will." Laura seized the moment to approach the stall, her heart still racing. "Sophia, my love, come here." "No, Mommy," Sophia replied, her voice soft but firm. "Thunder is still scared. He needs to know everything is okay." As if to confirm her words, the great black horse lowered his head, allowing Sophia to stroke his neck. The scene was so powerful, so charged with meaning, that even Jed let out a sob. "Boss," he said, taking a step forward, "I can't do this anymore. The girl, she doesn't deserve this." "Shut up," roared Richard, advancing menacingly. "You're paid to obey, not to have a conscience." "Enough," Mr. Montgomery's voice boomed through the stable. "Richard Harrison, in 40 years on the rodeo circuit, I've seen plenty of bad things, but planning to hurt your own daughter, that's a new level of depravity." Richard backed away, his face alternating between red with rage and pale with fear. "You don't understand. The family reputation—" "Reputation," interrupted Laura, years of hurt spilling out. "You talk about reputation while planning to harm an innocent child? Our daughter, Richard, your own flesh and blood." Sophia, still in the stall with Thunder, watched the scene with tear-filled eyes. "Daddy," she called, her small voice clear but quiet, "why could you never love me the way I am?" The entire stable seemed to hold its breath. Richard looked at his daughter as if seeing her truly for the first time, not as a problem to be solved, but as a real person, with feelings and strength of her own. He began, but the words died in his throat. "The Montgomerys are cancelling all contracts with you," declared Mr. Montgomery, his voice filled with contempt. "And you can be sure that by the end of the day, the entire rodeo circuit will know what kind of man you are." "You can't do this," protested Richard, panic finally breaking through his mask of control. "Those contracts are worth millions. I can and I will, but that's the least of your problems." Montgomery took his phone out of his pocket. "While we've been talking, my wife has been on the phone with Sheriff Martinez. He's on his way back. Here right now." Laura felt her legs grow weak with relief. Pedro rushed to support her, his soaked clothes leaving a puddle on the dirt floor. "And there's more," Montgomery continued, an interesting glint in his eyes as he observed Sophia with Thunder. "Laura, have you ever thought about turning this place into an equine therapy center?" "What?" Laura blinked, surprised by the change of subject. "Your daughter has a rare gift, and Rodeo Creek could use something like this. I can help with the initial investment." "No!" bellowed Richard, taking a few steps forward. "This ranch is mine. You can't—" But before he could finish the sentence, Thunder reared violently, placing himself between Richard and Sophia. The businessman fell backward, terrified on the muddy ground. "The ranch," said Montgomery, his voice sharp, "will go to Laura and Sophia as part of the settlement your lawyers will receive later today, unless you'd prefer to settle everything in court with all the evidence we have against you." Jed, who had been watching everything in silence, finally found his voice. I'll testify about everything. The plan, the ropes, the threats." Richard, still on the ground, looked as though he had aged 10 years in just a few minutes. The rain continued to fall outside, but inside the stable, the air was charged with change. The hours following the confrontation in the stable passed in a whirlwind. Sheriff Martinez arrived later that afternoon, soaked by the relentless rain, and found a scene he would never forget. Richard Harrison, the powerful businessman, sitting silently in his office, signing papers under the watchful eyes of the Montgomerys' lawyers. "Mrs. Harrison," called Pedro, who hadn't left Sophia's side since the incident, "can I help take care of Thunder, now that he's staying here forever?" Laura smiled, running a hand through the boy's wet hair. "Of course you can, Pedro. Actually," she exchanged a significant look with Mr. Montgomery, who nodded. "How about you live here? We have a spare room in the staff house, and Thunder seems to really like you." The boy's eyes filled with tears. "Live here? For real?" "For real," confirmed Sophia, holding her friend's hand. "You can help me with the other horses too. Mom said we're going to turn the ranch into a special place." Across the room, Sheriff Martinez spoke quietly with Jed, who looked like he'd aged. "A decade in a single day. So that's it," sighed the sheriff, closing his notebook. "You know you'll have to answer for your actions, right?" Jed nodded, his shoulders slumped. "Yes, sir. I accept that. But first," he turned to Sophia and Laura. "I need to ask for forgiveness. I should have said something sooner. Stopped it." "Fear can do terrible things to people," Laura replied, her voice soft. "But you chose the right side in the end. That counts for something." Sophia, watching everything from her wheelchair, added, "And you can redeem yourself by helping others. When you get out of jail, you can come work here again, to help, not to hurt." Mr. Montgomery, who had just finished a phone call, approached. "The group. The papers are ready. Laura, as of tomorrow, you are officially the owner of Hope Ranch." "Hope Ranch," repeated Sophia, her eyes shining. "It was my wife's idea," Montgomery smiled. "She thought it suited the new purpose of the place. And speaking of which," he took a card from his pocket. "This is Dr. Helen Carter, the best equine therapy specialist in the state. She's very interested in your gift with horses, Sophia." Laura held the card with trembling hands. "But how will we start? There's so much to do, so many adaptations needed." "The Montgomerys don't do things by halves," the patriarch replied with a smile. "The initial funding is already secured. And I'm sure that when Sophia's story spreads, many other people will want to help." As if to confirm his words, a loud neigh came from the stable. Everyone turned to see Thunder, now completely dry and brushed. Pedro's dedicated work, watching the group through the open door. "He's different," commented Sheriff Martinez, cautiously approaching the horse. "More serene." "It's because now he knows he's home," Sophia replied, guiding her chair towards the animal. "Isn't that right, friend?" Thunder lowered his head, gently touching Sophia's shoulder with his muzzle. The scene was so powerful that even the lawyers paused their work to watch. "Laura," called Mr. Montgomery, his voice softer, "Richard is asking to see Sophia, just for a moment before he goes." A tense silence fell over the room. Laura looked at her daughter, who surprisingly nodded. "It's okay, Mommy. I'm not afraid of him anymore." Richard entered the room like a shadow of the man he once was. His expensive suit was crumpled, and his hands, always so steady, trembled slightly. "Sophia," he began, his voice hoarse. "You don't have to say anything, Daddy," Sophia interrupted, her small voice firm. "You just need to learn to see with your heart, like Thunder does." Richard swallowed hard, tears finally shining in his eyes. You are extraordinary, and I was a fool for not seeing it sooner." "You'll have time to think about that," said Sheriff Martinez, placing a firm hand on Richard's shoulder. "Now we need to go." As Richard was led away, Laura noticed the rain had finally stopped. A ray of sun broke through the clouds, illuminating the stable like a natural spotlight. "Look, Mommy!" exclaimed Sophia, pointing to the sky. "A rainbow!" And indeed, a magnificent rainbow arched over Hope Ranch, like a colorful promise of better days to come. The sun rose differently the next morning over the newly christened Hope Ranch. Laura woke to the sound of excited voices coming from the garden. Opening the window, she saw a scene that warmed her heart. Sophia, still in her pajamas, instructing Pedro and two of the Montgomery's staff on how to organize the stable for future visitors. "The aisle needs to be wider," she explained, gesturing with her small hands, "so wheelchairs can pass easily, and we need ramps everywhere." "Got it all noted, Sophia," Pedro replied, proud in his new junior handler uniform, a gift from Mr. Montgomery. "And look who came to visit. An elegant middle-aged woman got out of a car parked near the gate. It was Dr. Helen Carter, the equine therapy specialist mentioned the day before. "Good morning," she greeted, walking towards the group with a warm smile. "So this is the famous Sophia. Mr. Montgomery told me all about you and Thunder." Sophia blushed slightly but held her gaze steady. "Are you going to help us transform the ranch?" "If you'd like," Helen replied, kneeling to meet the girl's eyes. "Actually, I came to see your special gift. May I watch you interact with Thunder?" Laura, who had come down to greet the visitor, felt a mix of pride and apprehension. "Doctor, are you sure? Thunder is still considered a difficult horse." "Not anymore, Mommy," Sophia interrupted with conviction. "He just needed someone who understood him." In the stable, Thunder waited in his stall, as if knowing he would be the center of attention. Seeing Sophia, he neighed softly and approached. "The bars." "Impressive," murmured Helen, watching intently as Sophia stroked the animal's muzzle. "The connection between you is extraordinary. Sophia, did you know there are many children who could benefit from your special sensitivity?" "How so?" asked Sophia, her eyes shining with curiosity. "Well, in equine therapy, we use horses to help people with different needs. The horse's movement, the contact with the animal, all of that can work wonders. But for that, we need special horses and special people too." Laura felt her eyes well up as she saw Sophia's face light up with understanding. "You mean I could help other kids, even being in a wheelchair?" "Especially because you're in a wheelchair," Helen confirmed. "You understand how they feel. And more importantly, you prove that physical limitations don't define who we are or what we're capable of." Pedro, listening intently, added, "Like you did with me, Sophia. Before I was just some poor kid everyone looked down on. You were the first person who saw something good in me. And now you're our best handler," Sophia smiled, making the boy puff out his chest with pride. Helen took a folder from her briefcase. "I brought some plans to show you. We can adapt the ranch gradually, starting with a pilot area. Mr. Montgomery has already secured the initial funding, and I have other interested investors." While the adults discussed technical details, Sophia stayed with Thunder, whispering in his ear, "Did you hear that, friend? We're going to help lots of people together. You'll be the most important teacher here." As if understanding every word, the black horse gently touched Sophia's shoulder with his muzzle. Laura, watching the scene, felt a deep certainty that they had found their true path. "Dr. Carter," Sophia called out suddenly, "do you think we could start this week? There's a girl in town, Maria, who also uses a wheelchair. She always wanted to get close to horses, but she was afraid." "Sophia," Laura interrupted, "we can't rush things. There's a lot of work to do, adaptations needed." "Actually," Helen smiled, "starting with a specific case might be perfect. We can assess the real needs, make adjustments, and with Sophia as our bridge to the horses, especially Thunder, the process will be much more natural." Pedro was already excited about the idea. "I can go get Maria today, and there's also John from the group home who has difficulty walking, and Anna, who's non-verbal but loves animals." Laura watched, amazed, as a simple moment of kindness, Sophia's decision to help a poor local boy had turned into a current of hope that now promised to reach the whole community. In the sky, the sun shone brightly, as if blessing each new plan, each new dream being born there. Hope Ranch was beginning to live up to its name. The first official visit to Hope Ranch took place on a Thursday morning. Maria, an 8-year-old girl who used a wheelchair due to paralysis, arrived accompanied by her mother, Mrs. Davis. Her large eyes revealed a mixture of fear and curiosity as Sophia welcomed them at the entrance of the adapted stable. "You don't have to be afraid," Sophia smiled, guiding her own chair alongside her new friend. Thunder looks big and scary, but he has the kindest heart in the world. Mrs. Davis nervously wrung her hands. Are you sure it's safe, Dr. Carter? The specialist, supervising everything alongside Laura, nodded confidently. Completely safe. Sophia has a natural gift for this, and we've practiced the whole sequence several times this week. Pedro, impeccable in his uniform, led Thunder out of the stall. The majestic black horse, once a terror at rodeos, now walked gently, his attentive eyes fixed on Sophia. See? Sophia reached out her hand to Maria. Want to touch him? Maria hesitated, but something in Sophia's confidence encouraged her. Slowly, she stretched out a trembling arm. Thunder, with surprising delicacy, lowered his head until his muzzle gently touched the girl's fingers. He's so soft, Maria exclaimed, a smile lighting up her face. And very smart, too, added Pedro, now helping Dr. Carter prepare the special equipment. Just yesterday, he helped Sophia reach an apple that was too high. Laura watched the scene with tears in her eyes. In just 1 week, the ranch had been transformed. Stalls were adapted, ramps installed, and a special therapy area created under Dr. Carter's guidance. More importantly, news of the place's new purpose was already spreading through the region. Sophia has a special way with children, Helen commented. Approaching Laura, she knows exactly how to make them feel safe. It's because she understands, Laura replied, watching as her daughter patiently explained to Maria how horses communicate with their ears. She knows what it's like to be afraid and overcome it. The morning progressed with surprising strides. With the help of special equipment and much patience, Maria was lifted onto Thunder. Her eyes widened in amazement at finding herself so high. I'm riding, she exclaimed, between laughter and tears of joy. Mrs. Davis, who initially bit her lip with worry, now smiled broadly. I've never seen my daughter so happy, she confessed to Laura. Since the accident, she was so afraid to try new things. Sometimes, Laura replied, all we need is someone who believes in us. Pedro, leading Thunder in a gentle circle while Dr. Carter supported Maria, called everyone's attention. Look, John and Anna just arrived. At the ranch entrance, 2 new families waited. John, a 10-year-old boy who used crutches, and Anna, a 7-year-old non-verbal girl. Their faces lit up when they saw Maria riding Thunder. Come on in, called Sophia, her voice brimming with enthusiasm. Thunder is eager to meet you too. Anna's mother, with tears in her eyes, watched as her daughter, usually so withdrawn, took a few hesitant steps towards the horse. To everyone's surprise, Anna reached out her hand on her own, a small smile playing on her lips. It's incredible, murmured Dr. Carter to Laura. In a clinical setting, it would take weeks to achieve this level of trust. But here, with Sophia and Thunder, Laura completed the thought. Here they don't feel different or limited. They feel special. Pedro, who had become the official ranch assistant, was already organizing an impromptu line explaining to each child how they should approach the horse. His own past of exclusion made him especially sensitive to each one's needs. You know something? Sophia said to her new friends. Thunder used to be scared too. People only saw him as a wild, dangerous horse, but all he needed was a chance to show who he really was. The girl's simple words deeply touched everyone present. At that moment, it became clear that Hope Ranch would be much more than an equine therapy center. It would be a place where labels and limitations lost their power, where fears turned into achievements. Thunder, as if understanding his role in that transformation, remained serene and attentive, responding gently to each new touch, each new approach. He was no longer the terror of the rodeos, but a teacher of courage and overcoming. 2 weeks had passed since the first therapy session at Hope Ranch. The place had transformed into a true haven of healing and joy, with new families arriving daily. On that special morning, however, Laura woke to unexpected news. Richard had requested permission to visit the ranch. "He wants to see how the work with the children is going," explained Sheriff Martinez, who personally brought the request. The judge authorized a supervised visit, considering his good behavior in detention. Laura felt her heart clench. "And Sophia? How are we going to tell her?" "You don't have to tell me, Mommy." Sophia's soft voice came from the office doorway. "I heard everything, and I think Dad should come." Laura and the sheriff exchanged surprised glances. "Are you sure, my love?" Sophia guided her chair closer to her mother. "Remember what I always say about Thunder, that he just needed a chance to show who he really was. Maybe Dad needs one too." The wisdom in those words left everyone silent for a moment. Pedro, who was helping feed the horses, hurried in. "Mrs. Harrison, Dr. Carter arrived with the new equipment, and there are 3 more families waiting outside." "You can tell them we'll be right there," Sophia replied, her eyes shining with determination. "And Pedro, Dad is coming today. Can you help Thunder get ready?" The boy hesitated for a moment but nodded. "I trust you, Sophia. Always." The morning progressed with its usual routine of therapies and smiles. Maria, now much more confident, could already perform small exercises while riding Thunder. Anna, the nonverbal girl, had started making sounds of joy when she was near the horses. John set aside his crutches for moments at a time, strengthening his legs with special exercises. It was amidst this atmosphere of overcoming adversity that Richard arrived, accompanied by 2 police officers. His face, once always marked by hardness and arrogance, now showed signs of humility and exhaustion. "Sophia," he called softly, seeing his daughter leading a therapy session with a new child. The girl turned her chair slowly. The silence that fell over the ranch was almost palpable. Thunder, always sensitive to the atmosphere, lifted his head attentively. "Hi, Daddy," Sophia replied, her voice firm but gentle. "Want to meet our friends?" Richard took a hesitant step forward, his eyes scanning the transformed environment. The old rodeo stalls now displayed colorful drawings made by the children. Ramps and special equipment made the place accessible to all. But what impressed him most were the smiles, dozens of them, on faces that might have only known fear or limitation before. You did all this?" he asked, his voice choked. "Not alone," Sophia replied. "Everyone here helped, even you, Daddy." "Me?" Richard blinked, confused. "How?" "Because it was because of you that we discovered our true mission. Sometimes we need to go through hard times to find our path." Laura, watching the scene beside Dr. Carter, felt silent tears stream down her face. Pedro approached with Thunder, the majestic black horse that was once a symbol of fear, now representing hope. "Want to meet the new Thunder, Daddy?" Sophia offered. "He also learned that being strong doesn't mean being violent." Richard looked at the horse, remembering his terrible plans, the evil he had intended. His legs trembled. I don't deserve any of this." "Everyone deserves a second chance," Sophia said, reaching her hand out to her father. "That's what I learned here, from Thunder, from Pedro, from every child who arrives scared and leaves with a smile." At that moment, something seemed to break inside Richard. Tears, which he had held back for so long, began to fall freely. Falling to his knees beside Sophia's chair, he sobbed, "Forgive me, daughter. Please forgive me." Sophia leaned over and hugged her father, her small body conveying a love greater than any hurt. "I already forgave you. Daddy, now it's time for you to forgive yourself." Thunder, as if sealing that moment of redemption, approached gently and touched Richard's shoulder with his muzzle. The children in therapy, their families, the ranch staff, all witnessed in reverent silence the transformative power of forgiveness. Dr. Carter whispered to Laura, "Your daughter doesn't just heal bodies, she heals souls." A month after Richard's visit, Hope Ranch flourished like a garden in the desert. What was once a place of competition and displays of strength had transformed into a sanctuary of healing and renewal. On that special morning, Laura watched from her office window as a line of cars formed at the main gate. "Mommy!" Sophia entered hurriedly, her eyes shining with excitement. The letter from the judge arrived. Laura took the official envelope. With trembling hands, inside was the decision that could further change the ranch's future: authorization for Richard to participate in the social rehabilitation program, assisting with the administration of the Equine Therapy Center under supervision. "What does it say?" asked Sophia, her voice barely containing her anxiety. "Approved," Laura whispered, tears of relief shining in her eyes. "Your father can come 3 times a week to help with the administrative side." Pedro, who had just entered, with the horse's daily reports, gave a cautious smile. "Does that mean he's really changed?" "It means he's trying," Sophia answered, wise as ever. "Like all of us, one day at a time." Outside, thunder neighed as if celebrating the news. The black horse, once a symbol of fear, was now the star of the ranch. His picture, alongside Sophia's, adorned posters and brochures advertising the Equine Therapy Center throughout the state. "Mrs. Harrison," called one of the staff members rushing in, "the TV crew is here for the news report." Laura's heart raced. The state's largest TV station had become interested in the ranch's story after hearing about the miracles happening there daily. Children who didn't speak starting to express themselves, people who feared movement finding freedom on horseback, families rediscovering hope. "Sophia," Laura knelt beside her daughter's chair, "are you sure you want to do the interview? You don't have to expose yourself if you don't want to." "I need to, Mommy," she replied with conviction. "If our story can help other people believe in second chances, it's worth it." Dr. Carter, arriving for another day of work, smiled upon hearing these words. "You know, Sophia, in 20 years of practice, I've never seen anything like what happens here. It's not just the equine therapy, it's something more." "It's love," Sophia answered simply. "The same love Thunder taught me, without judgment, without conditions." The news crew was amazed by what they found. They filmed Maria, now confident and laughing, performing complex exercises on one of the horses. They recorded Anna, the non-verbal girl, humming softly while brushing a foal. They documented John, growing stronger every day, helping younger children prepare for their sessions. "And how did it all begin?" asked the reporter, sitting beside Sophia near Thunder's stall. Sophia stroked the horse's muzzle before answering. "It started with fear. The fear my father had of being the parent of a different kind of child. The fear Thunder had of the men who hurt him. My own fear of never being accepted as I am. And how did those fears turn into something so beautiful?" "Through forgiveness," Sophia replied, her voice soft but firm. "When we forgive, we make space for love. And love works miracles." Pedro, assisting with the filming by carrying equipment, added, "Before I met Sophia and Thunder, I was afraid to trust people. I thought everyone would hurt or abandon me. Now I know family isn't just about blood." The reporter discreetly wiped away a tear as the camera recorded scenes from daily life at the ranch. Parents learning exercises to do at home with their children, volunteers preparing nutritious snacks, veterinarians performing checkups on the horses, and at the center of it all, Sophia, a little commander in her wheelchair, spreading smiles and courage wherever she went. "Next week," Laura commented to Dr. Carter as they watched the filming, "Richard starts his volunteer work here. And how do you feel about that?" Laura took a deep breath, watching her daughter now explain to the camera how Thunder could sense people's emotions. I learned from Sophia that forgiveness isn't an endpoint, it's a beginning. Richard has a long road ahead, but at least now he's walking in the right direction. The sun began to set as the news crew finally departed. In the sky, pink clouds formed, shapes that looked like horses galloping freely. Sophia, exhausted but happy, watched the natural spectacle beside Thunder. "You know, friend," she whispered to the horse, "sometimes the best stories start with a broken heart." Thunder responded with a soft whinny, as if agreeing. On the horizon, the first stars began to shine, silent witnesses that sometimes the greatest miracles are born from the greatest challenges. 6 months had passed since the first therapy session at Hope Ranch. The place, which once echoed with the shouts of cowboys and the bellows of steers, now vibrated with children's laughter and friendly neighs. On that special spring morning, a crowd gathered for the official inauguration of the largest equine therapy center in the state. Sophia, wearing a special floral dress for the occasion, watched the transformation in amazement. The old rodeo bleachers had given way to sensory gardens, where children of all abilities could explore textures and scents. The area where the chutes once stood now housed a modern clinic, with physical therapy equipment and a multidisciplinary team. "Are you nervous?" asked Pedro, adjusting his bow tie, a gift from Laura for the occasion. He had become not only the lead handler at the ranch, but also a diligent student, determined to become a veterinarian in the future. "A little," Sophia admitted, smiling at her friend. "But it's a good kind of nervous." Laura approached, beautiful, in her blue dress, accompanied by Dr. Carter and Mr. Montgomery. Behind them, escorted by a supervising officer, came Richard, thinner, more humble, but with a different light in his eyes. "Everything's ready," announced Laura, leaning down to adjust a lock of Sophia's hair. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Sophia nodded, determined. Beside her, Thunder waited patiently, his black coat shining in the sun, wearing for the first time not a rodeo saddle, but special therapy rigging decorated with colorful ribbons. The ranch yard was packed. Families who had found hope there, local officials, journalists, and even Jed, serving his sentence doing volunteer work with rescued horses. Everyone awaited the special moment Sophia had planned for weeks. "Excuse me," Sophia's voice, amplified by the microphone, silenced the crowd. "Today isn't just the opening of a therapy center. It's the celebration of something much bigger, the power of love to transform lives." She paused, her eyes scanning the faces in the audience. Maria, now able to perform complex exercises. Anna, who had begun forming short sentences. John, using his crutches less and less. "Every person here," Sophia continued, "has a story of overcoming adversity. Each of us has faced fears, prejudice, limitations, but we discovered together that our differences aren't weaknesses. They're special gifts that allow us to understand and help one another." Richard, hearing his daughter's words, couldn't hold back tears. Laura discreetly held his hand, a simple gesture that spoke of forgiveness and new beginnings. "And now," Sophia announced with a radiant smile, "I want to show you something special we've prepared." "Daddy, can you help me?" A murmur of surprise rippled through the audience as Richard, with trembling hands, approached his daughter. With the help of Pedro and Dr. Carter, and using specially developed equipment, they lifted Sophia from her chair. "Thunder," she called, softly, and the majestic black horse approached, lowering himself slightly, a trick they had practiced for weeks. With careful, precise movements, Sophia was positioned on his back. "They said Thunder was too wild to be tamed," she said, adjusting herself in the new rigging. "They said a girl in a wheelchair could never ride. They said a father who made mistakes couldn't be redeemed. They said a poor kid from town would have no future. But here at Hope Ranch, we learned not to listen to what they say. We learned to listen to our hearts. With a gentle command, Sophia and Thunder began to move through the yard. It wasn't just a demonstration of adaptive riding. It was a ballet of mutual trust, a dance of overcoming. The audience watched in reverent silence, many with tears in their eyes. This place, Sophia continued, her voice thick with emotion, isn't just a therapy center. It's a place where miracles happen every day, where fears turn into courage, where differences turn into gifts, where strangers turn into family. Thunder completed the circle, stopping exactly where they had begun. Pedro was already there, ready to help Sophia back into her chair, but she signaled for him to wait. "Every one of you," she said, looking directly at the children in the audience, "is special just the way you are. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. And if you ever doubt it, remember the black horse who learned to dance, the girl in the wheelchair who learned to fly, the poor kid who found a home, and the father who learned to love. The sun, reaching its highest point in the sky, bathed Hope Ranch in a golden light. In the stable, other horses neighed softly as if participating in the celebration. The wind carried the scent of newly planted flowers from the sensory garden, and in the distance the bells of the town church began to ring. It was more than an inauguration. It was the dawn of a new era where differences didn't divide but united, where limitations didn't imprison but liberated, where love, in its purest, most unconditional form, proved to be the greatest healer of all.